want to hear a funny story? Because I thought of one for you guys. So, other than that, you can free to leave. Here's my story. Can't believe I never thought to tell you guys this one. I used to work at Mount Charleston. And by used to work, I mean I worked there for 2 weeks. It was my first job in Las Vegas when I moved here because I wanted to learn how to ski. And Mount Charleston is about 45 minutes away from Thomas. My favorite color. My favorite color is used to be yellow, probably blue. Blue's a good color. All right. So I was a mountain man. Yeah, I had the beard. I really was a true lumberjack, to and fro. So I thought, you know what? I want to learn skiing. Mount Charleston is a ski place. It's called Lee Canyon Ski Resort. 45 minutes, hour out of town, basically. Hour from Vegas. If I work there, then you get to ski for free. So I thought, I'm going to apply. And I applied. And I got picked for the position tubing attendant, which means you attend to the tubes. People pay money, and they basically get in a giant Cheerio, and they slide down a half a mile of icy snow. And they pay like $50 to do that for like an hour. So you have to attend to making sure those giant inflated Cheerios get hooked back onto this like thing that goes up half a mile back to the top, and you're tending the tubes and all that. Here's what I didn't know about working an hour out of town in the freezing cold for minimum wage. Maybe I should have thought about it. But all the people I worked with were ex-felons. I mean, everyone. Everyone. Now, I don't know if you know this about me, but I am not an ex-felon. I'm not an ex-con. Okay, so I remember kind of being a little bit, just not fitting in, let's say. I'm like, hiya, everybody. Today's swell, ain't it? Can I get anybody some coffee? And then I look, and I've got like all these grizzly, like tattooed people, like looking at me like, Arr. I know they were felons because they talked about all their crimes all the time, like really crazy stuff. And they'd know each other, be like, yeah, did you hear about the blah 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 who got out? Again, I didn't think like, oh yeah, who's going to work an hour outside of town for? By the way, I'll just say this: another one of the teachers, remember the cybersecurity teacher. Mr. Varela, he worked in the better part. I worked in tubing with all, like, that was where all the prisoners apparently were. He's actually knows how to ski, so he taught people there. So I don't know, I must have bumped into him before I was even a teacher here. Possibly, who knows. But anyway, so it was a really weird environment. I remember, though, my boss was, like, he had just come from prison or something like that, and he was really gruff and like rough around the edges, and he ended up kind of becoming, I don't know, let's say indisposed. I think he was, dealing with like drug issues and stuff like that. So I ended up kind of running some of the tubing because he'd be like, in a corner like, can't do anything, right? So he's the guy in charge. No, there's no direction. So I'd be like, all right, you get a tube, and we get these rushes of people and stuff, right? Sometimes people would the icy snow, whatever, was way too slick, and basically it was like this. I said it was a half a mile going downhill. You get on a tube and you ride down, okay, and then to slow you down at the bottom, we had these rubber mats that your tube would hit, and every time you hit it, the friction would cause you to slow down. And even if you didn't slow down still, there was it started to incline, like go up and up and up, okay? So go up, 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 so gravity would stop you, right? Well, here's the thing. It snowed so much this year. It was like the craziest winter ever. And it was so slippery that people were getting on the snow, the tubing ramp thing. They'd go down, they'd get to such a high velocity, they'd hit the rubber mats, some more, they'd go uphill, and then the hill just basically became just a ramp for them to be launched out into the forest and stuff where no one would find them. It was so ridiculously dangerous. And I remember being there at like 8 o'clock in the morning. I had to get up at like 5 or something just to be able to get there in time. And like taking like a shovel and like we had to break up the ice so that it would be less slippery in the morning. I mean, it was like prison labor, right? So I remember it would be like, oh, we got another one. So then eventually we finally put fences at the end, like these fences. Okay, so imagine you're going down this slingshot that's accelerating like crazy. All right, then it comes level. Now there's rubber mats to stop you. Then the ice eventually starts going up at an incredible incline. And because that's not good enough, now we have fencing up there, right? Still didn't do it. People would go in and they would literally achieve at such a high speed. They would hit the rubber mats, they would go up the hill, and then they'd crash into the fence, and they'd take out the fence with them, and then they'd just be gone. Out into the trees, out into the wherever. So every time this happened, us tubing attendants had to go like, stop everybody, stop, and we'd have to go down there and fix it, right? So sure enough, my boss who's like on drugs and just gone and just he's nowhere to be found. So I'm kind of pseudo in charge. No one made me in charge, but I'm like, all right, guys. So I remember somebody went down this incredibly dangerous slope that should have been just a lawsuit. It was so dangerous. And they completely blew through the fence and everything. I'm like, all right, everybody, I got this one, you know. And I'm like, I'm going to take care of it. And I'll be right back. I get my giant Cheerio. And, you know, the way you go down is you get out of a tube and you slide down. So that's the fun part of the job, I guess. Besides the back-breaking labor and grueling, freezing, mind-numbing, bone-tingling cold, frost-bitten icicles that form off of your eyelashes, as they did with me. So I get on the Cheerio, and I go all the way down, and I must have gone so fast because I'm like, all right, guys, I'll be right back. I got this under control. I get on the thing. I jump down. I'm like face first, right? Going. And at the bottom, I'm going so fast, I hit one of those rubber mats. And I literally fly off of the... Again, this is another story where I take flight. And I land... I like fly... I think I must have flipped backwards because I remember landing on my head and my back like at the same time. So basically like bam, smack. And it was one of those things where I had just done it in front of like 70 people. Like I was it hurt so bad. I was like the arrogant guy who was like, all right, everybody, I'm stopping this. I'll take care of it, right? And then I'm like, I got this under control. And then I just completely wipe out. I think I got up to try and save face. But when I got back up there, literally, I had people like, are you okay? That looked really bad. And I had a lady there. She was like, I'm a doctor. Can I check you for a concussion? So then she's like asking me what year it is and stuff. And I'm like, I'm like doing all that. There was nobody I could go to for medical help or anything like that because we were undermanned already. Like, no, I couldn't leave. So I just kept working after that. I had no idea if I had a concussion. What year is it, sir? 2020. Now it's my spine, exactly. I'll tell you another injury I got in that one was another similar one. I go in to repair the fence, and this was one of the days when my boss guy was there, and I grabbed the fence, and I feel this horrible, like, cut and burning. I look at my hand. I had my gloves off at the time, and it was like glass all in my hand. And I was like, oh! And I said to the guy, I said, he said, what is this? And the guy's like, it's a polyethylene. I'm like, what do I do? He's like, duct tape. I'm like, forget, it was in my hand for weeks. It's just insanity. So anyway, that was one of those weird jobs. I ended up totally quitting. I'm a professional at quitting jobs. I just tell you that much. Like I had enough. I don't know how anybody stayed in that job longer. I remember being up there when it was pouring like wet snow. I want to say rain, but it was so cold it had to have been freezing temperature. But it was like slush, and it got into my boots and my hand, and it was so dangerous. No one could make it up the mountain, so they closed the day. We ended up leaving around 12. But I thought that day I was gonna get frostbite because it was my boots had filled up with water. It was crazy. So that's one of those jobs. I have probably a few other stories from that experience, even though it was only 2 weeks. It's one of those things that I don't really think about actively. So when you guys asked for stories, I forgot that I even worked with a bunch of ex-cons and felons. But anyhow, that's that. Remind me, and I'll think if I can get you some of the stories. You guys chat so funny. Get a teach up now. Quicker jump. And he's been a ghost ever since. That's right. All right, guys. I'll see some of you at the 2 o'clock meeting. For the rest of you, I'll see you on Thursday. Take care. Bye. Oh, and look at this. I'm live streaming. So if anyone's watching live stream, you just got that juicy story about when I worked in Mount Charleston.